On this video, hang on a second. What is that? Wait, is that love on the spectrum? U.S. Get some popcorn. It's go time. Welcome back, my friends. And if this is the first time you've checked out a video on my channel, welcome. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. Since my diagnosis later in life, I have devoted my time to advocating for the autistic community. And I do that with my podcasts and these YouTube videos. And my goal is to raise a level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in being a part of, I'd be delighted if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. You know, just by watching the videos, commenting, rating, sharing, and subscribing, you help me reach even more people to raise that level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people right across the planet. You can also check out my website, orionkelly.com.au. You'll find everything you need to know about me right there. Even send me a message to check it out, orionkelly.com.au. If you know anything about my videos, you know that I've reviewed Love on the Spectrum episodes one by one, aired in Australia, produced by Northern Pictures, broadcast by ABC Australia. I've gone through every episode. They were potentially controversial. And here's the really quick nutshell catch up if you're new. So last year, I reviewed every episode of Love on the Spectrum Season 2 in Australia, the Australian version, the original version. And without asking or soliciting, just doing the episodes and putting them on YouTube, actual cast members started to reach out. Cast members started to email me with their own stories and experiences. Obviously, confidentially, I shared some of those experiences on my videos. If you haven't seen them, go and check them out. It led to me having an actual meeting with one of the heads of Northern Pictures and an executive from ABC in Australia. Trust me, I gave them every bit of honesty I had in me, and I made it very clear that I don't accept some of the answers to the questions that I had. That isn't right. I share some of those during these videos too. If I pick up changes they've made that I talked about, in no way am I saying I made that happen. I'm just saying these are some of the things that I remember talking to them about. I'll point those out. I'm not speaking on behalf of you or anyone else, okay? It's my review, it's my thoughts. So they're not right or wrong, they're mine. The one thing I do want to start with is when I did it last year, I talked about how it was pitched on Netflix and the ABC on their platforms as a reality TV dating show. Now, the reason why I brought that up, and I took a screenshot, so here's a screenshot from last year, on Netflix, describing Love on a Spectrum Australia. It clearly says right there, reality TV. The rule in Australia, at least, I can't speak on behalf of American media law. In Australia, documentaries pretty much forego the responsibility of having to pay the cast actual money for their time. Okay, so you will compensate them for travel and food, really superficial costs, but you don't actually pay them a wage for being a cast member because it's documentary. Right? But if it's a reality TV show, they're cast members. They should be paid for their work. Now, some of the cast members have reached out to me from the Australian version, said, well, they weren't paid. Apart from expenses, they weren't given a wage. And they actually were told at no time it was anything but a documentary, and that's why. So the producers made it very clear to the cast, this is a documentary, that's why you're not paid. But then it's promoted on the platforms that make the money off it as a reality TV series. And my main point last year was, we are talking about a minority group that have a medically diagnosed neurodevelopmental disability that organisations are using, in my opinion, exploiting for the entertainment of others, for the most part neurotypical non-autistic people, in a commercial sense, yet not even paying them a wage, law or no law. It's a moral law. If it says docu-series, okay, you can see they've twigged onto what I'm saying. Okay, so you can see the American version is a bit ambiguous. It kind of says both. So here we go. My friends, including my friends at Northern Pictures and Netflix, just my own brutal, honest, autistic review of Love on the Spectrum, U.S. Just say America. Now, the first autistic person we meet is Danny. Now, Danny, in my opinion, is like the Teo of the American version. As you hear the questions she's asked and the answers she gives, was your initial response to find her amusing, entertaining, to have a giggle or a laugh? Or was your initial response to try and listen to what she's saying and to try to better understand her as an autistic person? Basically, most answers given from regular everyday people watching your show is, gee, she's cute, gee, she's funny. Isn't she quirky? Isn't she a bit different? Of course, in real life, all those things would probably make you push her away. Yet you're watching it from the comfort of your own home and suddenly it's entertainment. I love how the dude off camera asks Danny, are you looking for love, Danny? It's called love on the spectrum. You've already cast her. You know she's looking for love. That's the best question you can ask so the world at large can better understand this amazing individual autistic woman. Okay, so there's the part where, like in Australia, they tell you where they live, because that's very important with regards to dating someone and finding love. So where do you live? Oh, I live with my auntie and uncle in LA. Sorry, this is not going to work. Okay, but the conversation with her auntie and uncle is a bit about who she wants, and it gets onto the whole gold digger, right? Now, again, the faceless dude off camera is chirping in with their questions all the time. They're great like that. They're just documenting interactions here. They're not interjecting. They're not manipulating. Oh, hang on. They are when they, oh, you a gold digger, Danny? Yeah. Not even a beat. And the auntie and uncle, do you know what a gold digger is? It means that you want someone for their money. Not a beat. Yep. This is an insight. There's two things here. This is the good. This is an insight. Autistic people's brutal honesty, their black and white thinking. It doesn't occur to us that there's anything wrong with us telling you the truth. Yeah, the most important thing to me and a partner is they can financially provide for me, right? Well, so okay, cool. That's her telling her truth. No worries. That's fine. But the idea that you would ask it a couple of times and it would be funny to everyone in the room but Danny. Danny's not laughing. Danny's being honest. Uncle and Auntie are chuckling in the background. It's like, so okay, so we're using Danny, an autistic person, to have funny, quirky conversations. Now, what's the response? Is the response, again, are you sitting back going, oh, I understand her more now? Or are you sitting back laughing with your person on the couch? Another clear example of the idea that we can use Danny and autistic people for fodder, for entertainment, for laughs, without really digging any deeper. In other words, just creating content with a disabled minority to make the masses laugh. In the same scene with the auntie and uncle, they talk about the practice boyfriend, okay? She dated someone, to get some practice, right? That's cool. I mean, that's called dating. Again, the focus there is on the reactions, not only of the auntie and uncle who find this hilarious, but also suddenly out of nowhere, the dude behind the camera suddenly got some questions again. Anything serious and able to understand her better. Quiet. Laughter. He's out of nowhere. Hey, whoa, so what's a practice? Now, you know what a practice boyfriend is, mate. Okay, you're asking the question, and the answer back is, well, it's a boyfriend you practice on. Like, the question and the answer is the same thing. And again, they find that funny. Everyone finds that funny. And it turns into this kind of laugh factory. You watch it. You tell me, where on Danny's face did she come across like, I'm making big jokes here, I'm killing it here? No, she's being honest and open. And then they go into this whole looking up YouTube to practice kissing. Most of her story is told through her auntie and uncle, or the dude off camera, right? About the whole cupcake thing. So she used YouTube tutorials on like a cupcake theory to practice kissing. Maybe it's a slight insight, hey, autistic people feel they've got to go on YouTube and watch tutorials before they can even date someone. That might be a good insight into autistic people, the overthinking. Then, in what I can only describe, in my opinion, as a court jester type moment, is when they actually get Danny to kind of recreate the kissing practice on the cupcake. You tell me how in any way watching Danny like tongue kiss this cupcake, I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch. But anyway, you tell me how that is anything but pure entertainment fodder. How that doesn't provide you any kind of genuine understanding or appreciation for autistic people. Watching Danny, I don't know what you'd even describe it, maul a cupcake with her tongue. I don't know. It's, you know what I'm saying, right? There's not a real cupcake there, but in essence, they pretend there is, right? They say, yeah, you show us. So they basically encourage her to do it. But then when she starts doing it, it's like, oh, you're grossing out your uncle or something. Who cares? Who cares if you guys asked her to do it? She's doing it now, and it's going too far, so you better stop. This is classic experience for autistic people, right? People can kind of use and manipulate us to a certain extent, but then when it passes their threshold of comfort, suddenly we've got to stop. If you've initiated it, then we're going to do it the way we naturally do it, and you're just going to have to deal with it. It's not like we just out of nowhere started licking our own hand, right? The next autistic person we meet is Abby. So as they do with most of the cast members, the people that are being documented, they ask them, so you're on the autism spectrum. I don't know why we can't just ask these people, so are you autistic? Anyway, we're stuck on this whole on the autism spectrum. The only thing about you that's autistic is your brain. And your brain isn't out of your body hovering over some sort of like spectrum, right? It's what I will say is it's not the dude behind the camera's decision, right? He should say what the preferred method is, and then it's Abby's call. Abby's call if she wants to say, like, for example, the guy behind the camera should go because it's preferred. Abby, are you autistic? And then Abby is entitled to go, yes, I am on the autism spectrum, right? She can choose. I do have autism. If she wants to say that, that's fine. But the narrative should not be decided by the dude off camera. Abby then decides to share her own thoughts and opinions about being autistic, and she likens it to being like the Little Mermaid. Ariel, I never know which one it is. One on the roof that gets TV or I don't know. In the movie, you know how like Ariel loses her voice? She wants to be human, she becomes human or something, and she loses her voice or something like that. Anyway, okay, so she's saying, well, she wants to be neurotypical because she feels like she has no voice, being an autistic person in the world. This is one of the great insights you could ever open up into. Here's a woman in modern day America that would rather not be herself because she feels like she has no voice. She is not heard. She can't talk. She feels like a fish out of water. The bottom line is, instead of really digging into that type of amazing insight, again, these amazing questions off camera. Are you looking for love? Well, you know she is. She's on your show. It's called Love on the Spectrum. What do you think she's looking for? She didn't lose her handkerchief. Chief? I'm an autistic person, I'm an autistic husband, and I'm an autistic father, and I have an autistic child. So I absolutely get that not only being an autistic person can be really hard in an adult life, in an adult environment, I also get that being an autistic person can be really hard parenting other people. And I also get that being a neurotypical person can be hard parenting autistic kids. So I'm an autistic person parenting an autistic kid. So I'm pretty sure I'm qualified to say that I get this isn't a bed of roses, but it's parenting and you chose it, you did it. I mean, let's just quit the whinging. I mean, it's okay to vent, but honestly, there's an entire scene in the Abby part where Abby's not even involved. It's just the dude off camera talking to the mum. To go into the whole story of how a few days into her kindergarten or playgroup or daycare or whatever you want to call it in your country, that they basically called the mum and said, I'm sorry, she can't come here anymore. That's discrimination and that's illegal for starters. But anyway, every country has different laws, and this was potentially, 20 years ago. So that's a really horrible story. But then it's a horrible story for Abby. She was failed by not only society, but she was failed by the law. She was failed by the people around her. She was basically said, no, you're different, get out. We can't have you. But it actually becomes about the mum. The mum gets upset. Again, I totally get why the mum got upset. You can just watch my videos. I get upset about stuff that happens to my kid all the time. But I actually do things about it and I advocate. Anyway, the next Abby scene is a lunch she has with her mum, her brother, and a couple that live on their property, in a house or a flat behind their house, whatever. And they're obviously very close, right? I think she refers to one of the guys as like her stepdad-ish. So they're like kind of family, they're quasi-family, they're important. So I get having a lunch together and I get the premise was that Abby was kind of just sharing with the whole family, the family at large, what she was going to do. The mum kind of asked and answered some of the key questions. Now, the thing about autistic people is you've got to give them time, processing time. Why can't we use this as an opportunity? Autistic people can have slower processing time in hearing what you're asking or in conversations, processing it, understanding it, and developing a response. It takes time. It might be awkward and uncomfortable. But the mum's asking a question, you want to tell them what you're about to do, and then bang, jumps in. The mum's constantly saving her when she doesn't need to be saved. Now, this isn't about the mum. I'm talking about an example here of how we can actually help people understand autistic people. There's nothing wrong with us that we might take a bit longer There might be more longer, awkward pauses before we provide you with a response. The point is, either you can have no gaps and no real response, or a little bit of a gap and a genuine response. Every autistic person is different. Some need more support, more care than others, right? High support needs, low support needs, that's fine. But this scene isn't even required if everyone is going to talk for Abby, except for Abby. Ladies and gentlemen, the next cast member, person being documented on Love on the Spectrum America, all the way from Australia, is the dinosaur guy, Mark. What do you mean it's James? It's the Mark guy from... No, it's not James. The Mark guy from Australia is James. He's just dressed up with a wig and... Are you sure? Okay, I apologise. Mark, the dinosaur guy from Australia, Love on the Spectrum, isn't on the American version. It's apparently a completely different human being called James. And to prove that the members of Love on the Spectrum US are not in any way cast to fit the characters that worked on the Australian version, James takes us for a tour around his bedroom, pointing out the eclectic and potentially different type of belongings, directions, and collectibles he has in his room. This is Mark. Mark walks around showing dinosaurs and this is not Mark. I've been told it's James. Okay, I'm sorry. James and Mark are not the same person, right? I get that. But even at the end, the dude off the camera, instead of any kind of great stuff, he just goes for the great joke to end the scene with it's like, oh, well, who do you have in your room for conversations? Because he talks about conversation pieces. Well, do you have people in your room for conversations? And of course, what's the answer? No. Bang. Scene. Entertainment. Zing. Exploitation. If you're an autistic person, right, and you maybe have an autistic mum or dad, or you think you do, because genetically it's the case. I love the interaction between James and his dad. From my point of view, and I'm just saying this from my own kind of personal thoughts and opinions, as you watch this episode, and that's something I'm clearly already done, I'm going through it now and talking to you about it, I find that the more and more James and his dad interact, the more agitated James becomes. You know how I always, in my videos, I always talk about how no one can trigger or set off my autistic son more than me, and vice versa. Everything we do rubs each other the wrong way. And I find as this episode progresses and the episodes progress, James becomes more and more agitated more quickly with his dad. It's classic. And his dad's like interjecting, oh, show him that cane. Who cares about is it autistic? Get him the autistic cane out, James. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've reached the point of the first episode of Love on the Spectrum America where the relationship coach is introduced. Now, if you've watched any of my videos on the Australian version, it's not one of my favourite parts of the show, and I'll tell you the reasons. Okay, the first reason is I don't believe from anything I've heard or seen, that the relationship coach on the Australian version is in fact autistic. And in addition to that, all the interactions, in my opinion, came across like a neurotypical person teaching an autistic person how to act neurotypical on a date with an autistic person. That's ridiculous and stupid. And I made that very clear, including in my conversations with the heads. Now, I'm not taking any credit. Zero credit. Wasn't me. I'm just saying I made it very clear many times how stupid that was. And guess what? Bang. Out of the gates, episode 1, relationship coach is not only an extraordinarily fantastic woman, but she's autistic. And she's a mum of autistic kids. Yes. Northern Pictures, thumbs up. Well done. You got an autistic woman to talk to autistic people and help them in a practical way enjoy their dates. This is not really talked about. It's kind of like Bruno. We don't talk about this, but in this episode, and there's no question that the coach, Jennifer, is masking. I mean, she looks the mum in the eye, she shakes, puts her hand out to shake, she does all the things that neurotypical people want to feel comfortable. So she's masking, she's camouflaging, she's suppressing her true self, in my opinion, to make others feel comfortable. And she even really says that. She says something like, what's going on in here isn't the same as what's happening out here. And this is a great insight into the lives of autistic people. It doesn't matter what our intentions are. It's almost impossible sometimes to even realize it's on and to take it off. We're in effect forced to suppress our true autistic selves to make neurotypical people feel comfortable. Jennifer, being the autistic woman who's like a coach, she shares to Abby she's autistic. She has kids, right? And Abby's, whoa, what do you mean? So the idea that Abby would think that you can't be autistic and be married and have kids and all that kind of stuff, to me, doesn't say anything about Abby. It says everything about the world around her, be that her own family or society. So thumbs up, Northern Pictures. You left in stuff like Abby asking, do you take pills? And you know what? This amazing autistic woman proudly says, you know what? I do. And I'll say, this autistic guy, I'll say, yeah, you know what? I do. Again, this is not about the mum, because I can't speak on behalf of everyone else's level of understanding of autistic people, even if you're parents. Being a parent of an autistic child doesn't provide you with a better level of understanding if you don't allow that to be the case. It's simple. It doesn't. But again, there's a need to save Abby, to roll your eyes when she says your hair looks like the Little Mermaid or whatever, or to save her when she talks about, do you take pills? Are there pills for pets? Oh, she always does left turns. It's like, Mum, we know she's autistic. She's talking to an autistic woman. The autistic woman has kids who are autistic. She knows how autistic people think. And what's even more ridiculous is a grown autistic woman speaking to another grown autistic woman, and there's a mum hovering in the background, not only on camera, but interjecting. So this autistic woman, this amazing autistic coach, explained in a really useful way, and not only that, but in a visual way, that, okay, it's really important to identify things that you love talking about, but it's also important to understand that in that, there needs to be space for other conversations. And it doesn't mean an empty space. You can put some things down there that you think they might want to talk about, but then you might be interested too. One of the best exercises I have ever seen as an autistic person with an autistic child and neurotypical wife, the exercise with the balls. So you roll the balls one after the other to the other person, and each ball symbolizes basically a question. So you've got all these balls, questions, kind of being fired at you. It's impossible to answer any of them. And even if you can, they're not in an in-depth or significant or meaningful way. So you don't actually get to know anyone that way. Now, as an autistic person, that can be hard to juggle, right? You may just be firing questions at people. Right? And the idea that you can provide this kind of exercise, this practical exercise, which the ball thing was amazing. This is honestly one of the best sessions I've ever seen. Hey, look at that. Only 24 minutes into episode 1, and yep, there's actually a date on this reality dating show. I mean, this docu-series thing. Meet David. David will be dating Abby. And my favorite thing, my bugbear from the Australian version, is these stupid thought bubble pop-up things to introduce people. The idea is, okay, cool, you can do that, but can you say a brief reason for why, so we get an insight into why? The reason why I say that is because autistic people have these likes and dislikes for sensory reasons, anxiety reasons. There's reasons, and that provides insight. And it doesn't take more than a few more seconds. We actually had a conversation about the thought bubble thing when I had a conversation with the heads of the organizations. And I made it very clear what I've just told you then. And their response was, it's just a creative choice. It's just, we're having a creative difference. You see that way, but it's a creative choice. It's like, so your creative choice is to generalize and stereotype autistic people in ways that makes them look even further away from any kind of understood person, right? Saying, here's David, he likes, I don't know, lions, and he hates horror movies and clowns. That doesn't help us. You see what I'm saying? So it isn't a creative choice. It's a choice to go for nothing over anything substantial while still using a minority group who have a disability for your own financial gain. I feel like people watching will watch the dates the same way you would watch a car crash or a train wreck, right? It's like you can't watch it, but you can't stop watching it. You watch it for an awkward entertainment or like a curiosity. Another really quick example of the idea where I feel uncomfortable, where I don't know if it's autistic people being used as fodder, being exploited for the entertainment of the masses, is the big owl thing. Like, it's an owl that can eat a serving size meal you get in America. I still have not been able to achieve that goal, but I'm going to keep trying. They talk about necks and bones, and the owl can turn its neck way more. It's got like double the bones or something. And then both Abby and David, they put that to the test. When you watched that, did you find that funny and entertaining? Because they weren't doing it like a stand-up on a stage. Hey, let me show you my trick about it. Like, they're not trying to be funny. Presumably you find that entertaining or weird, or like, what are they doing? But that's not their intention. So that's where I feel uncomfortable. It's like, what? So we're using these people to make you guys laugh and go, oh, isn't that cute? Oh, isn't that funny? Aren't they quirky? It's like, that's patronizing. It's not actually meaningful in any way of appreciation or understanding. With only 5 minutes left in episode 1, guess what? There's a date. Danny and Solomon. Danny, we all well know by now, meets a guy called Solomon who, again, these thought bubble things like, whatever, man. Seriously. And he doesn't like messy eaters and I think aggressive birds. Can I get a show of hands? Who likes aggressive birds? I don't like messy eaters, and I can tell you why. Because it makes me feel like vomiting on their plate. Are you an animal? What are you doing? You're creating a vortex of vomit for me. Eat your food like a human. Aggressive birds, here, tweet, tweet. This date between Danny and Solomon is actually pretty beautiful. And there's a couple of things I want to point out, okay? These are the insights that people will never understand. So, as you can see from the very start, if autistic people don't like the other person they're meeting, you'll know pretty quickly. Like, I mean, you can watch the dates you've seen on all the Australian version, this version. They shut off pretty quick, right? They do. It's a fact. So these two are both pretty chirpy and nervous. So I guess you can see pretty quickly they like each other. Now, they have crazy similar passions. They make that clear. Danny talks about animation. Solomon talks about communication, and also he talks about helping and mentoring young people with disabilities. Now, Danny teaches animation to autistic people, people with disabilities. So these two couldn't be more on the same page. Their passions align. Date 1, first time meeting each other, Solomon drops the law of attraction bomb on Danny. Totally agree. I'm with you, my friend. Well done. Stick at it. It might not work with dating for you, but during the first date, Danny leaves the table to go to the toilet. But this whole toilet thing never really goes to the toilet. It goes to the camera guy. And she tells the camera guy, they help people with disabilities. They help them to thrive, to achieve their goals. They have that in common. That's a passion they both have, right? She talks just glowingly about Solomon. Really, this is right in the middle of the first date. She tells the dude behind the camera she's in love. He asks, did you say you're in love? Yes. When Danny returns to the table, she, out of nowhere, out of context, in the middle of a Solomon sentence, says to Solomon, I'm in love with you. You're so hot. I'm in love with you. You're so hot. Okay, that's kind of okay. I'm in love with you. Now, this is an insight into autistic people. We are very quick to judge and decide. A lot of times that can be to our detriment, but we are. As you know, at the end of episode 1, Solomon kind of like excuses himself to kind of gather his thoughts. We did ask the follow-up question, the dude behind the camera, did you say you're in love? We didn't really dig into that. What do you think it's possible to be in love after just meeting someone? Why do you think you're in love? What are the feelings? Do you know what I mean? These are insights, because I guarantee there's people watching this. And again, that's fodder to them. Neurotypical masses are watching this going, oh, how cute is she? She loves him already. Like, this is bizarre, funny. And what's funny is neurotypical people will date for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months doing nothing but playing mind games with each other, literally putting each other through the ringer, doing everything in between, but not even thinking about saying their true feelings. They might love them from day 1 and they'll say, yeah, whatever, man, meh. You want to catch up? Sure, whatever, man. When that's not what they want to say. It's a really genuine challenge for autistic people in the dating world, and this is a show about dating. Well, that was actually way better than I thought it would be. Love on the Spectrum, US episode 1. Well done. More reviews coming soon. In the meantime, check out my reviews on other episodes and series of Love on the Spectrum. where I might not give as many thumbs up right now. And until then, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support and we'll talk soon.